What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we're going to be talking about one of the last running backs I think has true league-winning top 5 upside that is getting drafted outside of the top 3 rounds in fantasy drafts. We're not going to waste any time. If you enjoyed the video at any point, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm pretty cool. My nitty bag.
And the running back we're going to be talking about today, a little bit of a drum roll. Breece Hall, a little bit of a manual drum roll there, but Breece Hall at this point is going at the pick 406 on Underdog as the RB18, and I have sunk 22% of all of my entry fees into Breece Hall. That is how much I love his price. Now, before we go any further, if you're new to the channel, you guys know Underdog is a massive part of this channel. We're going to be doing best ball live streams all summer long. You hop on the Underdog, they have a bunch of really cool tournaments like Best Ball Mania 3 where there's like $10 million in prizes. You have the puppy out right now, which is going to close soon. You can get in at $5 price, tournament format, all of the works. Now you're going to go on there, promo code RON. When you deposit, they will match your deposit up to $100. I have a link that'll take you right to their site with my promo code already entered in. It'll be down below in the description. It'll be down below in the comments. Now, when we talk about Breece Hall, he feels like a profile that we should be getting in like the mid-third round of drafts at this point. And it seems like it's been a lot of, in terms of the, I guess the reception on Breece Hall and just kind of the market's view on Breece Hall at this point, rookies haven't been super kind to fantasy drafters recently, outside of those guys who go in the top 2 rounds of fantasy drafts that were like first-round draft picks. So obviously like Saquon, Zeke, Najee last year, Fournette, those guys. But that next year of runners, people love to say that they haven't done anything recently. You have Etienne, Javonte, Sermon this year. Before that, you had Akers, Dobbins. People have sort of felt like they've been burned, especially with Javonte last year. And here's the issue. People love to say, well, Javonte didn't smash last year, so why should Breece Hall? Here's the issue. First, I made a similar video on Javonte last year to what we're doing here today, and Javonte didn't burn us. He was absolutely fine. You drafted him as an RB2, RB3. He finished RB22 in points per game. He was a 6th-round pick. He had an 8.4% win rate. 1 divided by 12 is 8.3, so he was a wash. Javonte had his worst-case scenario where he was good, he was efficient, he was breaking tackles, but he was in a 50-50 split with Melvin Gordon, and he still didn't hurt you. There was no profit, but there was no loss. It was a wash in the worst-case scenario. And these types of running backs where they're little misses, but they're massive swings, those are the types of asymmetrical upside archetypes at running back we want to chase, and that's what we're getting with rookie running backs. Also, that's a 1-year sample of Etienne, Javonte, Sermon. You had Etienne get an injury. Javonte, like I said, was fine. He just didn't smash. And then you had Sermon. I don't know what to say about Sermon. But when we look at the broader range, we've had tons of running backs go outside of those top 2 rounds in fantasy drafts that were rookies and still pay off. We had DeAndre Swift his rookie year. He did great. We had Todd Gurley his rookie year. Believe it or not, he was like a 4th-round pick. Kamara his rookie year. Kareem Hunt his rookie year. Jonathan Taylor his rookie year. All of those guys smashed outside of the top 2 rounds of fantasy drafts. And I think Breece Hall has a really good chance to join this group. And when we talk about Breece Hall, I want to break him down from the ground up because this is also a Dynasty channel, and we've talked a lot about Dynasty and Breece Hall as a prospect. But I haven't really talked about, like, I would almost call you guys a separate, I know I have some of the OG subscribers here at this point, but a lot of you guys sometimes just tune in during the summer to get your redraft information. So let's brush up on Breece Hall, the prospect. And he is a freak athlete at this point and is, in my eyes, the same tier of running back prospect as those guys like Swift, Gurley, JT, Kamara, Hunt. I would say Kamara and Hunt weren't even that great of prospects. They just kind of got gifted really good situations, and they were also really talented. But when we look at Breece Hall, just an absolute freak athlete. I don't think it's talked about enough in terms of how crazy he was at the combine. Now, if you want to say, you know, the combine, something was weird with the lasers, whatever. But if you put him toe-to-toe with Jonathan Taylor, we're looking at similar numbers. Now, Breece Hall is 5'11", 217, so Jonathan Taylor is more compact at 5'10", 226. When we look at 40-yard dash, both 4.39, 20-yard split, 10-yard split, pretty much match up. Yeah, Breece Hall is slightly more explosive. He did better in the broad jump, better in the vertical. Didn't run a shuttle or 3-cone time, but nobody really did at the combine, so We don't know what's good with his agility, but in terms of RAS, relative athletic score, it spits out a score out of 10. He had a 9.96, even higher than what JT put up. And the most important part of this physical profile is going to be that 40-yard dash time, where he has 4.39 speed at his size, and that gives us crazy efficiency ceiling type potential when we have breakaway run potential. Jonathan Taylor has led the NFL the last 2 years in runs over 15 plus yards. So Breece Hall is a profile here with this top end speed where he can make his own efficiency, make his own fantasy points, where you get any kind of daylight in between the guards or in between the tackles, boom. He could be gone to the house on any given play. Has that Nick Chubb long speed, that Jonathan Taylor long speed. That's what we want from guys who are 5'11", 217 with an all-purpose archetype, because you can get the efficiency and you can get the workload. And when we talk about Breece Hall passes athleticism as a prospect, he is an all-purpose guy. So he's not, I would even say that he has a better receiving skill set than a guy like Jonathan Taylor, where Jonathan Taylor, he had 20 touchdowns last year. He needed a lot of efficiency to get to RB1 overall. Breece Hall can catch passes and get there on PPR scoring as well. He had 23 catches at Iowa State as a rookie, then another season of 23 catches, and then 36 catches in his final season at Iowa State. Breece Hall, extremely clean prospect. And this is what my model spit out for him. Now, again, a lot of you guys probably weren't with us for Dynasty season, and this is a loaded screenshot, so let me explain. This is pretty much a massive spreadsheet where I have a prospect model, and it spits out tiers for each player. And when we're looking at this screenshot, on the left we have prospect info, which is draft round, draft pick, and the draft year. And then we have a player's prospect here. All of these guys on this list are elite. And the way it works is I have legendary tier, which hit 100% of the time in terms of hitting top 12 point per game running back seasons. Elite hit 80% of the time. Golds hit 50% of the time. Silver 25%. Bronze 7%. And when you look at Breece Hall, he fits into the elite tier as an 80% hit rate to have a top 12 running back season at any point in time. And on the right of that, after prospect tier, we have RS grade, which is his numerical grade out of 10. It's literally just 0 through 10, what your grade is, and then where that grade falls is elite, legendary, gold, all of that. Then I separated the model's comp. So everything that goes into RS grade, I separated into 5 components of production, film, athleticism, receiving, and age profile. So you can kind of see how a prospect profile is made from the ground up, and then we can sort of draw comps that have similar archetypes from there. And what I did here to pull up these comps is, if let's say you have a B plus film grade, I'm only putting people with A minus, B plus, and B. So you get one up and one below in each category. And when we pull up Breece Hall's, man, his comps are juicy. You have Joe Mixon, you have JT, you have Chubb, you have Matt Forte. A really solid group of guys. I think all of them have top 12 finishes at this point. Mixon and Forte being guys with higher receiving ceilings than a guy like Jonathan Taylor. When you look at the receiving grades, you have Breece Hall at a B, Matt Forte at a B, Mixon at a B+, JT and Chubb at a B-. So Breece Hall even has a higher receiving ceiling than those guys. And I also want to point out, these guys have super high ceilings even as rookies just within this cohort. Now, Mixon and Chubb weren't amazing as rookies. Chubb was amazing on the back half of the season. But if you look at like his overall point per game, it wasn't that crazy. It was after Carlos Hyde gets traded, Chubb comes in, he was amazing. But JT was the RB8 as a rookie, and Matt Forte was the RB3 as a rookie. So I think that really just highlights the upside you're getting with Breece Hall in the 4th round, where you're picking between upside swings and 15 point per game plotters like Jacobs, Zeke, Montgomery, and I'm taking Breece Hall every time. Checks every box: size, speed, 3-down skill set, pretty much production all 3 years of his career. And then that brings us to the draft, where he gets 2nd round draft capital. He goes 36 overall. And here's the key part. I think something that people really overlook is the Jets traded up to grab Breece Hall. Now, if you know Joe Douglas, the Jets GM, I don't know why I said DM, he doesn't like to trade up. He trades back, constantly trading back and back. If you remember Denzel Mims, he traded back like 3 times in the 2nd round, grabbed Denzel Mims there. He is a trade back fiend, Joe Douglas. But he trades up here to grab a running back. Joe Douglas is also a big analytics guy from the Eagles department, so it's also really weird that he traded up for a running back. But I think it just shows how much the Jets really wanted Breece Hall, where they even traded up over an RB-hungry Houston Texans team, where the Houston Texans, they grabbed Dameon Pierce later. They have no running backs. The Jets knew if they wanted to get Breece Hall, they needed to move ahead of the Texans. They did that. I think that matters a ton. And just to add to that, J.J. Zachariason had a really good study on running backs where teams trade up for them. He said historically running backs who've been traded up for in the draft have produced better than their counterparts. We've seen round 2 and round 3 trade up running backs average 1.7 more PPR points per game during the rookie campaign than backs who weren't taken with the trade up. And their first season also saw an uptick in rush attempts of about 22. So we know the fact that the Jets traded up for Breece Hall tells us a lot about how they feel about Breece Hall. And then historically, we have a lot of data to say teams that trade up for running backs on day 2 usually use those running backs more often than if they didn't. And I think that this not only says a lot about how they feel about Breece Hall, but I think it says a lot about how they feel about Devin Singletary. Or not Devin Singletary, who might as well be Devin Singletary, but Michael Carter, who clearly isn't a guy that they want handling all of the work or feel like is their running back of the future or a future bell cow. If they felt like Michael Carter was a really talented running back that could be a future bell cow type guy, they would have just passed on Breece Hall. Remember, this is a team that was not good last year. There's no reason for them to take a running back. They have holes everywhere on this roster, on draft day at least. And they could have just went, Isaiah Spiller, Tyler Algier in day 3, and that could have been enough. But no, they traded up for Breece Hall. And I think that speaks a lot to how they feel about Michael Carter. And I think Michael Carter gets a lot of love for what he did last year, and it wasn't all that impressive. This is my sophomore comps database. So it spits out Michael Carter, his prospect grade, his points per game from year 1, and his target share. And these are who he compares to, right? Again, he's a smaller 5'8", 200-pound day 3 back, catches passes, but I would put him in that same area as like a Nyheim Hines, Devin Singletary, and I think that's about right. 11 points per game, 11.5% target share. I would even say those numbers are a little bit inflated. If we look at his splits from last year, this is something that I would find super concerning. If I'm drafting Michael Carter or I'm thinking that Breece Hall is going to be really impeded by Michael Carter being there, Michael Carter, again, 11 points per game last year, but he averaged 19 points per game over 4 games with Mike White. And then the rest of the season when he was playing with Zach Wilson or whatever other quarterback they trotted out there, only 7.9 points per game. That's not good at all. That's not startable numbers. He's averaging less than 3 targets per game. He went from 8 targets per game with Mike White to 2.5. And I truly do think that a lot of his numbers are just inflated because Mike White came in there. He was pretty much a nobody prior to that, and he was just checking the ball down a ton. I think that's really all you can chalk that up as. Now, I'm not saying Michael Carter is not a good receiving back. I think that he is a Nyheim Hines. He was even comped to a guy like Giovanni Bernard coming out, UNC running backs. I think that's also a fine comp. But to think that Michael Carter is going to be this like main back 50-50 split, this isn't going to be Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. There's just no way that they lean into Michael Carter as much as some people might lead you to believe. Now, this is where I think JT is actually the perfect comp, not just athletically or from a prospect perspective, but from a year 1 outlook perspective, where Jonathan Taylor ended up as the RB8 in points per game as a rookie at 16.9. But we have to remember, he had a brutal slow start. It wasn't until around week 10 where he was the RB3 in points per game with 24.3 points per game from week 11 on, which is pretty crazy considering he was only like a 22 point per game guy over the entire season. So on that back half of the season, he was the RB1 JT that we know and love. And it wouldn't shock me at all if Breece Hall takes a similar path here where he starts slow, he's splitting snaps with Carter early on, almost like a 50-50 split. And then week 8, week 9, week 10, he shows a little bit more. He flashes his potential. And from there on, he sets the world on fire from weeks 10 on. It really wouldn't shock me. They also have a really easy back half of the season schedule. Let me bring that up real quick. All right, I just put this together on the fly. But as you guys can see, we have the Lions, the Jaguars, the Seahawks as that last 3 stretch. Now, again, remember, with Breece Hall, the bet isn't that Breece Hall comes in week 1 and gets all the work. The bet is that he's efficient, he's talented enough to make it work with less of the workload, and then by the end of the season, we'll see him take control of the job, go from maybe a 50-50 split to like a 60-40 split, benefits from efficiency, and then on the end of the season, just absolutely tears it up. again, I think it's a really good path for him to tear it up with this schedule, with the Lions, Jaguars, and Seahawks. And when we look at other running backs who've been good recently, where DeAndre Swift was the RB16 as a rookie, he only had a 48% opportunity share. JT was the RB8 on a 53% opportunity share. I think Breece, if he's good enough and he's talented enough and we think that he's a good enough prospect, he could probably thrive off of a 50% opportunity share. And again, that 50% is probably skewed because you're looking at it on the entire season. But if it starts out, let's say it starts out 45-55, and Michael Carter's actually the lead back there. And then by the end, it's like 58-42. The average altogether is going to bring that down. But you guys get what I'm saying. It's going to skew towards the back half. And this is a really good representation of that, or visualization of that, from Jack Miller. I believe he works over at Established to Run. He does great work. This is a really, really cool visual where it shows, do rookie running backs get more productive as the season progresses? We look at veteran running backs in terms of their points per game over the entire season. Pretty much stays the same. But when we look at rookie running backs, there is a massive increase from that first week to that last week. And that's all we can ask for. If we think Breece Hall's baseline up top, remember, these are all of the rookies. If we think, Breece Hall could come out the gates with like 10, 11, 12 points, somewhere in that area, he can skyrocket by those last 5, 6, 7 weeks. And then that's when we're bringing money home. So that's when you want a running back to really pop off. And that's what you're getting access to with Breece Hall. He only gets better as the season goes on. And that's perfect. I just checked July ADP as well. Our last little bridge to Jonathan Taylor. As a rookie, Jonathan Taylor in FFPC drafts in the month of July was the 402 as the RB19. This year, Breece Hall is going off the board as the 401 as the RB17 in that same format. Now, don't tell me Marlon Mack was a factor. Marlon Mack didn't get injured until week 1, so it's not like he pushed up JT or like JT had his ADP get steamed. It wasn't until after week 1 that Marlon Mack went down and kind of changed the calculus of the equation. But I think they're very similar bets. They're going in similar ranges. They were drafted in similar spots. And they look very similar. And Breece Hall is even more exciting because he has the athleticism, he has the production, but he also has a much stronger receiving skill set than Jonathan Taylor. And when we talk about Breece Hall in the context of this offense, just as a cherry on top of all of this, just in terms of from a talent perspective, we have an offense that is projected at its floor almost, that has a lot of steam to outproduce expectations. Pretty much people are assuming that the Jets will be like a top or a bottom 10 offense. What if Zach Wilson takes a year 2 leap? This is the greatest weapon crew that we've had on the Jets since like Ryan Fitzpatrick, Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker. We have Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, Braxton Berrios, Uzoma, Conklin, a bunch of guys who, would just make the weapons we had during the Jeremy Curley, Geno Smith type years look amazing. Also, this offensive line is on the up and up. I don't know how much you guys follow the offensive line, but Mekhi Becton is this big hoss up front, just this absolute mauler. Elijah Vera Tucker, same thing. He specializes in run blocking. Then you have Laken Tomlinson, who's this big mauler at guard. And PFF is pretty high on this O-line. They actually have, remember, the Jets have Matt LaFleur, who came from the 49ers. So he's going to run a good, like, outside zone-ish type scheme, and that's going to benefit the efficiency of the running backs like Breece Hall. And he's going to have the offensive line to do that, where the Jets have the 13th ranked offensive line per PFF in the high-end potential area. Pretty much the only reason they couldn't put him in the top 10 is because, like, Becton's unproven, Vera Tucker's unproven, but they have all the potential in the world to be a top 5 to 10 type offensive line, and they're actually, funny enough, ranked ahead of the 49ers offensive line, which has sort of been seen as like an elite unit that has pushed forward that Kyle Shanahan scheme. So there's a lot of upwards momentum right now for Breece Hall to pay off at his ADP. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest if he's a guy who averages 18 plus points per game over the last like 7 games and ends up winning people a lot of money. Now, that's going to do it for today in terms of football side of things. I just want to push one thing for you guys real quick. We have the basement t-shirt giveaway. This is some merch that we made over here in the basement. You got the basement in the front. You got the basement Godfather letters in the back. You got me and Winnie on the couch. Now, the way you're going to get one of these. Also, if any of you guys out there are smaller gentlemen, if you're out there and you're like a small, we ordered sizes pretty poorly. I got to be honest with you guys. We have like almost like an equal amount of everything, but we're idiots, and larges and XLs are way more popular than the smalls. Right now, we have a lot of smalls and a lot of mediums that nobody is accounting for. So if you want a medium or a small, I know it's a giveaway, but you're pretty much guaranteed. If you're a medium or small and you want one of these shirts, all you have to do, I'm going to put this down below in the description, in the comments section. But all you have to do is use promo code Ron on Underdog. We talked about that earlier. Comment on a YouTube video and fill out the Google form in the comments, and boom, you're in. I'll ship them out. I want to say we're going to start shipping them out probably around like August 15th area. So not this Saturday, but that next Saturday. Now, that's going to do it for us today, fellas. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like, and I will see you guys in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice. Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper song, singer, suspended, subpoena from Mr. Meaner.